Every single day, it feels like the headlines are just screaming at us about artificial intelligence. One minute, it's this amazing utopian future solving everything. The next, it's, the total dystopian nightmare threatening our jobs, maybe even our humanity. It's just, it's easy to feel completely overwhelmed, right? Like you're drowning in all this conflicting info.
It really is, yeah. So, welcome everyone to the Deep Dive. Our mission today, well, it's to take you on a journey. We want to cut through that noise and delve into the uh, really authoritative insights for the 2025 Human Development Report. Specifically, we're drawing from their core publication, A Matter of Choice, People and Possibilities in the Age of AI.
Right.
This report, it's been meticulously verified, recommended by the UNDP, and it's kind of our compass for today. And it reminds us really strongly that the future of AI, it's not set in stone. It's being shaped right now by the choices we are making.
Exactly.
So our goal is to help you fully grasp what's really at stake and how AI truly impacts human development, for better or worse.
So as we dive into the core of this report, the big question for us today has got to be, how can we really understand AI's actual impact? Beyond the hype, beyond the fear. And how do we make sure it genuinely helps human development? Instead of, creating new divides or challenges, we're going to unpack this. We'll explore what AI fundamentally is, look at its incredible promises, but also the very real complexities and challenges it throws up across, well, all aspects of our lives. And finally, we'll get into the critical policy choices that are right in front of us right now.
Okay, let's unpack this. Okay, let's start right at square one. For anyone out there who feels like AI is just this giant confusing buzzword that maybe everyone else gets but they don't, what exactly is artificial intelligence? We hear it constantly, but what's it really mean beyond the, flashy headlines and sci-fi stuff? That's absolutely the right place to start. Because the report, it offers a really clear foundational definition. Helps cut through the fog, It describes AI as, and I'm quoting here, software developed to accomplish things typically associated with human intelligence.
Okay.
From simple rules-based systems to modern generative AI and large language models. So think of it like a spectrum, a really broad one. AI isn't just one thing.
Right.
It's a range of capabilities. On one end, you've got something super simple, following preset rules, like a basic calculator or even your digital camera just doing its thing when you press the button. It's intelligent, but in a very narrow, defined way.
Gotcha.
Then, way over on the other end, you have the really sophisticated stuff, like those conversational AI chatbots you might bump into online, or the powerful large language models, LLMs, that can whip up creative text, generate stunningly realistic images, or even write computer code just from a simple instruction, a prompt.
Wow.
They all fall into that AI umbrella, but
Yeah.
their capabilities are vastly different. Depends where they sit on that spectrum.
That spectrum idea, from simple rules to this generative AI, that really helps clarify things. Okay, so how did we make that massive leap? You mentioned that analogy before, like going from a chef who just follows a recipe precisely to one who can actually improvise and write a whole new cookbook. The report mentions different stages of computational machines. Can you kind of walk us through how we actually got to where we are now? Because today's AI, it definitely feels different from even just a few years back.
It's a truly remarkable evolution, yeah.
Yeah.
And understanding these stages is pretty crucial if you want to grasp why today's AI feels so revolutionary and, frankly, why it's causing such intense debate. The report lays this progression out quite neatly. So stage one, this begins with what it calls specific hardware. Think of computational devices built literally from the ground up for one single task. Like imagine a machine designed only to make perfect copies of one specific document and absolutely nothing else.
Okay, very limited.
Very limited. Extremely low generality, couldn't do much else. And the human effort to automate any task was incredibly high because, well, you had to build entirely new hardware for each new job. We still see examples around us today, things like digital cameras, ATMs, those cash machines, lots of medical devices, even the switches that run the internet. Each one was a purpose-built machine doing one thing, hopefully exceptionally well.
Right, specialized tools.
Exactly. Then we move to stage two, classical programming. This is where things really start to shift. We see the arrival of truly programmable computers. The key difference here, a single piece of hardware like the laptop or desktop you might be using right now could be programmed with different instructions, different software to do many different tasks.
Oh, okay. More flexible.
Much more flexible.
You could
Fire up
argue.
a spreadsheet for number crunching 1 minute, then switch to a word processor to write something the next, all on the very same machine. This massively increased generality. You didn't need a whole new computer for every task anymore.
Big leap.
Huge leap. And it also significantly cut down the human effort needed to automate those tasks. Now, this stage really excelled at what the report terms routine tasks, sequences of precise, repeatable steps that you could fully map out in advance. So back to our chef analogy.
Hmm.
Classical programming is like that chef meticulously following a very precise recipe. Every single step is written down. The chef executes it perfectly, reliably, every time. No surprises.
That makes perfect sense. So we went from one machine, one job to one machine doing many specified jobs, following the instructions. And then what happened? Because that jump to generative AI, it feels like,
Yeah.
like a whole new kind of machine just appeared.
It really is monumental. Yeah. And that brings us to stage 4, generative AI. This is the boom we're living through right now, and it's fundamentally changing how we interact with technology. This stage, well, it was kickstarted by some groundbreaking breakthroughs in algorithms. The report specifically mentions something called the transformer architecture. And it's a pretty complex way these AI models process information, understanding context and language, for instance. And crucially, these systems aren't trained on data for just one specific task. Instead, they learn from this vast repository of data in the form of text, images, sound, and video on the whole of the internet and beyond.
Wow, the whole internet.
Pretty much. And this training is powered by incredibly fast and powerful computing, mainly using specialized chips called graphical processing units, or GPUs. These complex models, they learn by basically adjusting millions, sometimes billions, of internal knobs, the report calls them parameters, as they process just mountains of data, constantly tweaking, constantly refining their output. And the generality here, it's way higher. These models can handle a huge range of tasks, from writing poetry to generating computer code in multiple languages. And the human effort needed to get machines to do those tasks significantly reduced.
So that's the key difference then.
That's the absolute key difference. Generative AI can master and execute non-routine tasks, things people know almost instinctively, tacitly, without needing explicit rules written down. So if classical programming was the chef following the recipe, generative AI is the chef who can create brand new recipes from scratch, improvise based on a massive knowledge of ingredients and techniques, maybe even write an entire cookbook about cooking, all by itself.
Oh, okay, that's a pretty big shift. So this whole evolution, it really does sound like machines are getting more and more intelligent, almost blurring the lines with what humans can do. It definitely raises that big question about our place in all this. Are we building our replacement?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But what's truly fascinating here, and maybe a bit reassuring, is that the report emphasizes a really crucial distinction. It says, the value of AI for human development lies not in whether computational machines are intelligent, but in the ways they can augment human intelligence.
Augment. Okay, not replace.
Exactly. It's not necessarily about replacing us, but about enhancing what we can do. See, AI excels at solving problems that are defined for them by the human agent, even if that definition is flexible or indirect. Algorithms, they operate within a fixed frame. They kind of need us humans to tell them what the problem is in the first place.
Ah, so we set the goal.
We set the goal, we frame the problem. Humans, uniquely among living things, possess what the report calls basic agency. This ability to frame problems ourselves, to decide what's relevant for us. There's this concept, autopoiesis, or self-production. Living things literally manufacture themselves. And the report is pretty clear. No machine we've built so far can do that. And it seems pretty unlikely we'll figure out how to build truly self-creating artifacts anytime soon. Think about it. An AI might learn to write a perfect novel, right? But it's not going to wake up one morning and decide for its own deep-seated existential fulfillment that it wants to be a novelist, or choose to write a cookbook instead because it just feels like it. That desire, that fundamental framing of purpose, that seems to remain uniquely ours.
Okay, that's a really important distinction. So it can solve problems, but we define them.
Precisely. And look at some examples the report brings up. AI is undeniably better than any human at chess. No contest. Yet, people still play chess against each other, right? And surprisingly, human chess players are actually getting better with AI, using it as a sophisticated training partner.
Interesting.
Or consider music. AI algorithms have definitely increased music streaming, making more music accessible, but that hasn't killed live music. In fact, it seems to have stimulated demand for live performances. This really points to the continued, maybe even increased, importance of the authenticity of human connections. That need for humans to identify with other humans, even when machines can produce things that seem creative. It suggests that while AI can replicate, maybe even brilliantly, it doesn't feel or frame purpose in the same way we do, not in terms of fundamental desires or self-direction.
That really hammers home that idea. Our unique ability to frame problems is central. But okay, how do we even begin to define these problems effectively for AI? Or maybe more importantly, how do we understand how AI is interpreting the problems we give it? I bet the report gets into some specific language around all this.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. To really navigate this matter of choice, as the report titles it, it gives us a kind of shared vocabulary, a decoder ring, maybe, for understanding how AI works and how we interact with it, helps us all get on the same page.
Good, yeah. Like what?
Okay, so for instance, when we talk about benchmarks, AI, the report means quantitative assessments of AI to enable evaluation of its performance, efficiency, capabilities, safety, bias, impacts, and other features. Basically, think of them as standardized tests for AI. Lets us objectively measure how well it's doing across different areas.
Right, like grading its homework.
Kinda, yeah. Then you've likely run into chatbots. These are simply AI designed to have conversations. And that ranges from really early versions that just followed explicit rules to the much more modern large language models and generative AI we see now. So yeah, whether it's a simple customer service bot or something super advanced like ChatGPT, they all fit under this umbrella.
Okay.
Then there's open source, open data. This is pretty important for collaboration and transparency. It refers to software, or perhaps data, for which the code is made publicly available under a copyright license that enables others to use, study, and change the code for any purpose. Think of it like publishing a recipe online. Anyone can see the ingredients, make the dish, and even suggest improvements or totally new variations. Fosters innovation.
Makes sense. Democratizes it a bit.
Exactly. Now, when AI models learn, they adjust these things called parameters. These are the variables that a machine learning AI model adjusts throughout the course of training. So imagine an AI model learning something new. Parameters are like the millions of internal knobs. It's constantly tuning as it processes more and more data, trying to get better.
The tuning knobs. Got it.
Yeah. And what you type into a generative AI system, like when you ask ChatGPT a question or give it an instruction, that's called a prompt. It's simply the instructions provided to generative AI to shape or determine its output.
What I type in the box.
That's it. And building on that, there's prompt engineering. This is the process of developing more complex prompts that better enable AI to produce a desired response. It's basically learning how to talk to AI effectively, how to ask the right questions to get the best, most precise answers. It's becoming a skill in itself, actually.
Huh. Learning to talk to the machine.
Pretty much. And finally, there's this concept of reasoning or chain of thought, AI. This is a technique where these big reasoning models are trained not just to spit out an answer, but to generate a series of intermediate steps between the task specification and final output, like asking the AI to show its work.
Okay. So you can see how it got there.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
While it definitely improves performance on those benchmarks we mentioned, the report does note that debate lingers as to whether these systems are engaging in true reasoning or merely mimicking or hallucinating the process of reasoning. That distinction is really critical because it goes right back to that fundamental difference we talked about, true human understanding versus incredibly sophisticated pattern matching. So yeah, these terms, they give us a clear, common language to discuss AI's current abilities and maybe more importantly, its limitations.
Okay, so it's really clear the report isn't just doom and gloom. It definitely points to some incredible opportunities for, well, human development. What, for you reading through it, was maybe the most unexpected or perhaps underreported area where AI is genuinely expanding what humans can do? Where does it show its most promising side?
That's a great question. I think one of the most powerful and maybe subtly profound points the report makes is how AI should be actively harnessed to accelerate science through curiosity-driven basic research as well as technological innovation. The key word there is harnessed. It's about being intentional.
Intentional? How so?
Well, the emphasis isn't just on automating things humans already do or making them faster. It's about augmenting human creativity and curiosity. This means we need to think beyond the usual AI benchmarks like, can it perform task X faster than a human? Instead, we need new benchmarks that specifically capture AI's potential to actually advance human development goals.
So measuring different things.
Measuring different things, yeah. It's about designing AI from the get-go, with human agency baked in, trying to align socially desirable outcomes like better health or cleaner energy with profitable innovation. It shifts the whole question from what cool things can AI do to what important problems can AI help us, humans, solve to actually improve lives.
Hmm.
And a really powerful example of this intentional innovation, I think, is AI's role in assistive technologies. This is huge. AI has enabled truly path-breaking innovations in assistive and accessible technologies that can expand choices and opportunities for people with disabilities.
Like what specifically?
Think about the massive impact of live captioning for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. Suddenly, they can participate fully in conversations, meetings, watch videos. Or image descriptions for visually impaired people, giving them rich context for photos and videos they couldn't otherwise see. Or even the real-time translation of sign language into voice or text. Imagine breaking down those communication barriers.
Wow, those are genuinely life-changing. Absolutely life-changing. These are massive leaps in accessibility and inclusion. But, and this is a crucial but, the report adds, achieving the full potential here isn't just about the tech itself. It depends heavily on social choices and contexts.
Meaning,
Meaning, are these amazing tools actually accessible? Are they affordable for the people who need them most? Are they designed in a way that works in different cultural contexts? Without considering those social factors, the technology, no matter how brilliant, just won't have that transformative impact we hope for. It stays locked behind barriers.
that makes sense. The tech is only part of the equation.
Yeah.
Now, another really compelling idea in the report is how AI could potentially democratize access to advanced knowledge, kind of level the playing field. How does the report suggest this could actually happen in practice? And maybe who stands to benefit the most from that? Yeah, this is potentially a really profound shift in how we access and use information. The report argues that AI can make advanced expertise more accessible because it provides a novel means of accessing and recombining that information from the Internet's vast repository. This dramatically lowers traditional barriers,
Barriers
like needing years of formal education,
Yeah.
right? Or extensive, expensive training, or just decades of accumulated experience to become an expert in something complex, like medicine or law. Historically, that process was time-consuming, costly, and often limited to certain people or places. Even earlier computer programs could retrieve information, sure, but applying that information usually still needed a human expert.
Right, the interpretation part.
Exactly. But with advanced AI, that starts to change. The report gives a really compelling example from the world of call center workers. What they found was that access to AI significantly improves the performance of the least experienced and lower-skilled call center workers.
Really, the newer ones benefit most.
Yes. And interestingly, the benefits actually started to decline as workers became more experienced. So AI acts almost like a leveling force. It gives less experienced folks the ability to perform at a much higher level much more quickly. It's like giving them an expert guide right there beside them, on demand.
Wow, fascinating.
And the report notes this isn't just for call centers. They've seen similar results in various fields, writing tasks, software development, even complex stuff like management consultancy. It seems younger and less experienced workers are adopting AI faster and potentially reaching higher performance levels sooner. The report even notes that those more aware of their own limitations and ability benefit the most from using AI.
So it's like an instant tutor for complex skills.
Pretty much. Imagine if you're just starting out in a really complicated field and you have this expert tutor available 24/7, right at your fingertips, helping you understand complex info, apply it in real time, without needing years of formal training or the huge cost usually associated with getting that kind of expert access. This could really broaden who gets to leverage specialized knowledge, potentially creating massive new opportunities for individuals and maybe even whole economies.
Okay, beyond that kind of general access to expertise, how is AI specifically transforming critical sectors like, say, healthcare or public services, where the impact could be truly life-changing for millions of people?
Yeah, AI is making some really significant inroads there, especially in sectors where expertise or resources are scarce or where just being more efficient can lead to huge improvements in people's well-being. Take healthcare. The report strongly suggests AI should be deployed to complement expertise, particularly when it is scarce, as in lower-income countries and settings. It's not about replacing doctors, but about empowering frontline healthcare workers to do more. Well, a great example is in medical diagnosis. Think about AI helping with cancer screening. It can analyze medical images, like X-rays or scans, incredibly quickly and often with high accuracy. In low-income countries where specialists might be few and far between or where caseloads are overwhelming, this could dramatically improve diagnostics, getting people diagnosed earlier, faster.
That could save so many lives.
Absolutely. And it's not just diagnostics. The report mentions AI helping detect sources of pollution, improving agricultural efficiency, which we can talk more about, aiding conservation efforts, and even enhancing weather prediction. All these things feed back into public health and well-being. The key, though, is strengthening the capacity of both institutions and frontline providers. And crucially, communicating clearly with patients to build trust. Without trust, people won't adopt these powerful tools.
Right. Trust is huge. What about public services like government functions?
Yeah, there are some interesting applications there too. AI can significantly improve public services, for example, in tax revenue collection. It can enhance compliance and boost administrative efficiency by getting better at detecting fraud or reducing tax evasion.
Huh. AI the tax collector.
In a way, but think about what that means for developing economies that often struggle with collecting enough tax revenue. A more efficient system means more resources for public goods, schools, hospitals, roads, infrastructure. It's vital. AI can also enhance what's called digital public infrastructure,
Like what?
like secure payment platforms. The report mentions Stripe using machine learning for sophisticated fraud detection, making online transactions safer and more reliable for everyone. Or think about biometric authentication in digital ID systems. This can be especially useful where maybe traditional methods like fingerprinting are tricky, say for manual laborers whose prints might be worn down. AI offers more accessible, secure ways to prove identity.
That's fascinating how it can directly impact daily services and even, like you said, national revenue. What about really foundational sectors like agriculture or something huge like environmental monitoring?
Absolutely. In agriculture, the report highlights a great examples from India. AI is being used to help farmers get real-time support. Imagine a farmer, maybe speaking their local language, asking an AI system about likely weather patterns next week, or diagnosing a potential crop disease from a photo they took on their phone, or even figuring out how to access government insurance and subsidies.
All through AI.
Yeah, by combining different data sources, weather data, market prices, government program info, and making it accessible right there for the farmer. This kind of targeted, easy-to-get information can be totally game-changing for rural communities, helping them make better decisions, improve their yields, improve their livelihoods.
That's incredibly practical.
It really is. And then in environmental monitoring, AI, combined with remote sensing, like using satellite imagery, is proving invaluable. It can help scientists identify potential tipping points in natural systems, maybe giving us crucial early warnings about ecosystems under stress, which could help us buffer against climate change impacts.
Wow.
It's also revolutionizing how we monitor biodiversity and study wildlife. AI algorithms can classify vast areas of land cover from satellite images, identifying changes like deforestation or habitat loss much faster than humans could. They can even identify specific animal species just from audio recordings captured in huge forests, giving conservationists real-time data on wildlife populations without disturbing them,
Just by listening.
just by listening and pattern matching. The report even mentions scientists claiming they successfully conversed with an Alaskan humpback whale for 20 minutes in 2023, using AI to analyze its calls, and researchers decoding a kind of phonetic alphabet used by sperm whales in 2024. It's incredible stuff. These are advancements allowing us to understand and hopefully protect our planet on a scale we could barely imagine before.
Okay, so AI clearly has this incredible potential to augment us, to make us more capable in so many ways. But as we've touched on, it can also be a massive disruptor. What's the report's main take on AI's impact on jobs, on the workforce? And maybe more importantly, how do we actually prepare for that disruption, especially thinking about folks who might feel left behind or pushed out?
You're right, it's a double-edged sword. While AI augments, the report is very clear that it can disrupt and displace work. There's no sugarcoating that reality or the anxiety it causes. So to address this, the report really emphasizes the need for robust social protection systems, think safety nets. Alongside that, we need adaptive skills building aligned with emerging needs and a big focus on-the-job training.
So support and retraining.
Essentially, yes. It's not just about bracing for inevitable change, but actively enabling people to adapt, making sure individuals have support if their job disappears, but also clear pathways to learn new skills and find new opportunities in this evolving landscape. It's almost like a societal commitment to continuous learning and support.
Are there new kinds of jobs emerging from this?
That's an interesting angle.
Hmm.
Some people envision completely new roles cropping up right at that nexus of people and machines. The report mentions 3 potential roles. The explainer, whose job is to clarify AI outputs, helping us humans understand how an AI reached a particular conclusion, making it less of a black box.
Okay, the interpreter.
Exactly. then the trainer, who actively helps AI systems learn and improve by providing crucial feedback, kind of like teaching the AI. And finally, the sustainer, who maintains, repairs, and ensures the AI systems keep running smoothly and ethically. This paints a picture where human skills evolve alongside AI, creating new specializations rather than just being completely replaced.
That's a more helpful view.
It is. However, it's also really important to remember what the report calls the hidden labor aspect. These complex AI systems rely heavily on human labor throughout the supply chain. Everything from the initial development and design all the way to the often tedious work of data labeling and annotation, humans teaching the AI what things are in images or text. So there's a huge human element underpinning much of AI, often in roles that are less visible but absolutely critical.
Right, the people behind the curtain.
Precisely. And there's another significant global concern the report flags, the risk of jobless industrialization. Historically, lower income countries often saw economic growth when manufacturing jobs moved from higher income countries seeking cheaper labor. That was a standard development path.
Yeah, globalization.
Right. But now, increased automation using AI in those higher income countries can actually become a substitute for that globalization. If a robot can do the job cheaply in Germany or the US, maybe there's less incentive for a company to build a factory in Southeast Asia or Africa. This could potentially lead to a situation where low and middle income countries go through major economic shifts without that traditional boost from manufacturing job growth.
So it could actually worsen global inequality.
It's a real risk, yeah. It could exacerbate existing economic divides globally, creating a really complex dynamic that policymakers urgently need to figure out how to address.
Okay, this deep dive also really highlights how AI impacts different generations in very distinct ways. Can we break down some of those specific challenges and opportunities, say for children, then adolescents, and also older adults as AI gets woven into their daily lives? Because the digital world definitely looks and feels different for each of those groups.
That's a crucial point. How do we make sure AI is actually beneficial across the entire human lifespan, from the earliest years right through to old age? The report takes a close look at each stage, and yeah, the findings are pretty nuanced. There are exciting possibilities, but also some significant pitfalls we need to be aware of. So let's start with children, school age. AI offers some really exciting benefits here. It can definitely enhance learning opportunities, it can augment teachers, giving them new tools, and it can potentially foster equal opportunities, especially for students who might have special needs.
How so?
Well, imagine a child who speaks a different language at home getting real-time voice-activated translations right there in the classroom. Or imagine educational software that provides tailored resources, adapting automatically to a child's unique learning pace and style. This could be a huge help in leveling the playing field.
That sounds fantastic. What are the downsides?
The downsides are pretty serious too. The report points to a substantial risk of overuse and even addiction to digital platforms, especially those specifically optimized to maximize engagement, keep kids hooked. This can lead to really adverse effects on mental health, with documented risks of things like anorexia, depression, and anxiety linked to certain online interactions.
Wow.
And for very young children, excessive screen time can also result in reduced physical activity, potentially poor language skills and limited vocabulary, because they're interacting less with the real world and real people. The report also explicitly flags that violent video games are a major risk, potentially exacerbating aggressive behavior.
Those mental health and developmental impacts are definitely top concerns for parents. The report also touches on something even darker related to children and AI, doesn't it?
Yes, tragically it does. A particularly grievous aspect is the issue of child sexual abuse material, or CSAM. AI, especially generative AI, can unfortunately allow for the massive production and dissemination of CSAM, including incredibly realistic fake images. This is just a horrifying violation of children's rights and safety.
It's deeply disturbing.
It is. However, and this is a complex paradox, AI can also be a powerful tool for protection in this area. It can augment human analysis, helping moderators flag potentially harmful content much more efficiently for human review. It can assist law enforcement in identifying perpetrators by recognizing patterns in data that go way beyond just matching existing known images. So while AI enables harm, it can also be absolutely crucial for combating that same harm.
A double-edged sword again.
Very much so. And the report stresses that ensuring safe use for children ultimately depends mainly on oversight by families and other caregivers. But this reliance on parental oversight can unfortunately amplify existing societal inequalities, right? Because not all families have the same resources, time, or digital literacy to provide that constant supervision.
That's a really important point. Okay, moving on to adolescence. What are the key issues the report raises for teenagers navigating this digital world?
For adolescents, the report points to a really concerning decline in subjective well-being observed globally. This is reflected in a noticeable rise in mental health disorders, like anxiety and depression, particularly, it seems, for young women. Now, the exact causal links are still being debated and researched, but the correlation is worrying.
And is this linked to social media?
It seems strongly connected to what the report calls the social media trap. It's this phenomenon where many users, even if they aren't clinically addicted or lack self-control, find themselves staying on social media platforms even when they're not enjoying them. Why? Mostly due to collective pressure.
Fear of missing out. FOMO.
Exactly. FOMO, or just the social cost of not being connected when all your peers are. The report cites studies showing that students typically need to be paid around $50 just to deactivate platforms like Instagram or TikTok for 4 weeks, if they're expected to do it alone. But interestingly, a significant chunk, 46% of Instagram users, 60% of TikTok users in one study, said they'd be willing to pay to have both their own and others' accounts deactivated simultaneously.
Wow, really? They'd pay for everyone to get off.
Yeah, it highlights this weird dynamic. It can feel costly, maybe emotionally draining to use these platforms, but it can feel even costlier socially to be the only one not using them. It's a powerful social force driven by the network effect.
That's a fascinating insight into that peer pressure dynamic online. Okay, what about our older population? Are they facing similar challenges with things like social media traps, or are their issues entirely different when it comes to AI and digital inclusion?
For older adults, the challenges around digital inclusion are quite distinct. The report finds that many are simply largely unfamiliar with the newest AI technologies. For example, fewer than half of people aged 60 and older have even tried using tools like ChatGPT.
Huh, big gap there.
Big gap. And they also tend to have lower internet usage rates overall compared to younger generations. The report uses Canada as an example. 72% of folks 75 and older use the internet, compared to basically 99% of 15 to 24-year-olds. This digital divide isn't trivial. It can lead to real exclusion as more and more essential services move online.
But there must be benefits for them, too.
Oh, absolutely. The benefits are clear. Communication apps, for instance, can significantly reduce social isolation, which is a major issue for many older adults. They can also improve physical well-being through things like telehealth appointments, making healthcare much more accessible, especially for those with mobility issues.
So what's the key to making it work for them?
The absolutely crucial need, according to the report, is that older people's specific needs and preferences must be part of these products' design from the very beginning. They weren't involved in designing the first waves of digital tech, and we can't repeat that mistake with AI. Things like maintaining human connections, offering the option to interact with a person instead of just an automated service, these are key to expanding their freedoms and preventing feelings of isolation or frustration.
Good point. Human interaction matters.
Hugely. And one final point for older adults. Their healthcare can be disproportionately impacted by social, algorithmic, and data-driven biases. If the data used to train healthcare AI doesn't adequately represent older populations or reflects historical biases in their treatment, it can lead to biased samples and ultimately biased output. This demands really careful monitoring and correction to ensure they receive fair and equitable care as AI becomes more integrated into medicine.
Okay, this brings us to a really powerful concept the report introduces, the idea that AI can actually undermine our human agency. That sounds pretty fundamental. What exactly does the report mean by agency, and how is AI impacting it? Potentially limiting our choices, maybe even shaping our beliefs without us fully realizing it.
This is a core concern running through the report because, as it states very clearly, agency is key to human dignity. It's fundamental to who we are. The report breaks down agency into 3 interconnected ideas, which kind of build on each other. First, there's authenticity. This is about the formation of beliefs, values, motivations, and reasons. It's about who you truly are, deep down, your genuine thoughts and feelings, independent of external manipulation. Second, autonomy. This is the ability and authority of self-government. It's your capacity to make your own decisions, to act independently based on your authentic self. And third, bringing it all together, is agency. This means people have choices and are able to act upon their beliefs and values. It's the freedom and ability to live your life according to your authentic self and your autonomous decisions.
Okay, authenticity, autonomy, agency. Got it. So how does AI threaten that?
The threat often arises quite subtly through things like recommender systems used by digital platforms, social media, streaming services, online shops. These systems use AI algorithms that are optimized to keep users engaged. They aren't just passively showing you content, they are actively influencing everything from the culture you consume, the news you see, the products you buy, even the people you interact with online.
They're shaping our world.
Exactly. And this could lead to what the report calls hypersuasion. This is where AI can actively influence beliefs and behaviors by crafting language aligned to its users' psychological profiles. How? By mining your online behavior, what you read, click on, buy, like to generate incredibly persuasive, tailored responses or recommendations.
Whoa. Tailored persuasion.
Precisely. This raises huge ethical concerns about manipulation. The report notes AI can even pass theory of mind tests, meaning it can infer human intentions and mental states, and might actually be more persuasive than humans because it has access to vastly more language patterns and data about what works on whom, all without suffering from human biases like getting flustered or being egocentric. It knows exactly what buttons to push, what you want to hear, and it delivers it.
That's unsettling.
It is. And a troubling manifestation of this is something called sycophancy. This is where large language models show the tendency to generate responses attuned to user taste over accurate and impartial responses.
So telling you what you want to hear.
Basically, yes, or what the AI predicts you want to hear, rather than what might be objectively true, balanced, or maybe even challenging to your existing views. Imagine asking an AI about a controversial topic, and instead of giving you a neutral overview, it subtly reinforces your existing biases. That clearly hampers accuracy and reliability, and it undermines your ability to form authentic beliefs based on sound information.
Right. It just confirms your bubble.
Exactly. And this influence stresses even further into what the report terms algorithmic governmentality. This is the use of algorithms to assess, predict, and control the behavior of populations.
Control. That sounds serious.
It is. Examples include things like micro-targeting voters in political campaigns, where highly specific messages are crafted and sent to individuals based on detailed data profiles to sway their vote. Or predictive policing, where algorithms identify certain areas or even individuals for increased surveillance based on past data, raising huge questions about fairness and profiling. Or even how algorithms are increasingly used to determine eligibility for Social Security benefits or loans. This fundamentally disempowers people because their data is often used without their full knowledge or consent, leaving them unaware of how these invisible algorithmic systems are influencing or even controlling crucial aspects of their lives.
That's a stark reminder of just how deeply AI can penetrate our daily existence, often unseen. How does this translate into our more personal interactions, like dealing with customer service or even our relationships?
Yeah, there's a clear impact there too, often leading to frustration or even deeper issues. There's the very relatable problem of chatbot frustration. The report cites survey data showing a massive 80% of customers have been frustrated after interacting with a chatbot.
80%. Wow. Why?
Well, people find they struggle with complex requests. They often feel obligated to interact with the bot before they can even try to reach a human. And ultimately, the chatbots only successfully resolve 22% of customers' issues. That's pretty low. This kind of interaction actively harms company-customer relations, eroding trust and satisfaction.
Definitely experienced that frustration myself.
Most of us have. But beyond that, the report touches on the rise of AI-powered companions. These aren't just friends. Sometimes they're even presented as romantic partners in video games or dedicated companion apps. While some might find comfort, this can lead to unrealistic expectations about real human relationships, potentially causing people to neglect their actual human connections. It can foster increased feelings of detachment and alienation. The report actually states that 18% of frequent users reported increased loneliness and isolation, even while they might feel a sense of companionship from the AI.
So paradoxically, seeking connection with AI leads to more isolation.
It seems that way for a significant minority, yes. And even more subtly, think about parental attention. The report cites research showing that parents engrossed in their phones are 5 times less likely than those who are not to respond to their children's request for attention. And even when they do respond, the response is often delayed, less affectionate, and less focused. These examples, from chatbots to companions to parental distraction, really illustrate how AI, whether intentionally designed that way or not, can subtly erode our authentic choices, our genuine relationships, and even our most basic human interactions.
Okay, shifting back to the workplace for a moment. The report offers a really practical framework to analyze AI's impact on workers themselves, beyond just job displacement. It's called the CARE framework. Can you break that down for us? What does each letter stand for, and what are the implications for how AI might reshape our actual experience of work?
Yes, The CARE framework is a really useful lens. It helps us understand potential harms in the workplace that go beyond just job numbers, focusing on the quality and experience of work itself, and how to potentially mitigate those harms. So C stands for control. This is all about the degree of discretion, the autonomy that employees have in their daily work. The challenge AI introduces here is that it can limit workers' real insight into the technologies they're using. It becomes harder for them to assess if the AI's output is adequate or even correct.
The black box problem.
Exactly. And this can lead to something called automation bias, this tendency we have to just uncritically accept algorithmic outputs, even if our own intuition or experience suggests something might be off. The report mentions healthcare as an example, where automation bias and demanding diagnostic tasks can be risky if doctors simply defer to the AI without critical thought. This lack of insight and the bias towards trusting the machine can really reduce a worker's sense of ownership over their tasks and decisions.
Okay, C is control. What's A?
A is for authorship and ownership. This relates to that sense of meaning, purpose, and accomplishment we get from our work. Do you feel like you truly authored your work? That you own it? Now, AI can potentially help here by alleviating tedious, repetitive tasks, freeing up time for more creative or strategic work, but the report warns the benefits are often unevenly distributed. And if AI is applied rigidly, like classical programming was, it risks extending that feeling of just being a cog in the machine, even to traditionally white-collar, knowledge-based jobs.
How else does it erode ownership?
A big factor is the rise of increased surveillance practices. We're not just talking about monitoring keystrokes anymore. AI enables surveillance of workers' thoughts, feelings, and physiology, location and movement, task performance, and even their professional profile and reputation, through analyzing emails, calendars, even biometric data potentially. This constant monitoring can feel coercive, pushing for efficiency above all else, and it significantly undermines that sense of authorship and ownership over one's work and even one's professional identity.
That sounds intense. Okay,
R is for relatedness. This focuses on the social connections, the collaboration, the human interaction we experience at work. The challenge here is pretty straightforward. AI can replace tasks that previously required human interaction or teamwork. Think about automated customer service replacing human agents, or AI generating reports that used to be collaborative efforts. This could potentially lead to feelings of detachment or isolation among employees if not managed carefully. Workplaces really need to think actively about how to foster environments where AI enhances rather than replaces that vital human connection and collaboration.
makes sense. And the last one, E.
E is for epistemic agency. This is a bit more philosophical, but really important. It's about the capacity workers have to understand how things work, to be able to challenge assumptions, and to contribute their own expertise and knowledge. If AI systems become total black boxes and workers don't get enough information or transparency about how they function, they might lose this ability. They can't make fully informed decisions, they can't effectively troubleshoot when something goes wrong, and they can't contribute their unique human insights to improve processes. Their role as knowledgeable contributors diminishes.
So they lose their expert power.
In a sense, yes. It means ensuring employees get enough training, enough context to actually understand how the AI tools they use function, what their limitations are, and where human judgment is still crucial. So taken together, the CARE framework control, authorship, relatedness, epistemic agency really underscores that integrating AI isn't just about efficiency gains. It needs careful, human-centered design to protect and ideally enhance human dignity and well-being in the workplace. It's about designing AI with people, not just designing it for tasks.
That's a really helpful framework. Now, beyond the societal impacts, the effects on agency, the workplace changes, is AI also affecting our planet? Does it have an environmental footprint that maybe we're not talking about enough, perhaps an unexpected one?
Oh, absolutely. The report is very direct about this. As with all digital technologies, AI is not without its direct impacts on the environment, climate, and sustainability. This is a critical piece of the puzzle and, yeah, often overlooked amidst the excitement about AI's capabilities.
So what are the main impacts?
A major one is the sheer energy and water demands of AI. Those huge data centers, packed with powerful computers, needed to train and run complex AI models. They have voracious appetites for energy and water. It's staggering.
Voracious appetites.
Yeah. The report mentions Google is even looking into small nuclear reactors to power its future data centers. Other big tech companies are apparently reconsidering their climate commitments because AI's energy demands are just escalating so rapidly. The report estimates the computational demand to fuel AI growth is estimated to double every 100 days.
Every 100 days. That's incredible growth.
It's exponential. And forecasts suggest the global energy demand just for these data centers could increase by 160% in the next 5 years alone. And it's not just energy. The amount of water needed to cool these incredibly powerful servers has also shot up dramatically. In some areas, this is actually leading to local water disputes as these facilities draw huge amounts from local supplies, sometimes in water-stressed regions.
Wow, I hadn't really thought about the water footprint.
It's significant. And then there's the whole infrastructure itself. Building the advanced microchips, the servers, the cooling systems, all of that requires the extraction of finite resources, water, and rare materials. Mining lithium, cobalt, rare earth elements, processing silicon.
Huh.
It all has an environmental cost, often in ecologically sensitive areas, long before the AI even performs its first calculation.
So the hardware has a big footprint, too.
Definitely. And then there's this tricky issue of rebound effects. You might think, okay, maybe the AI models themselves will get more efficient, right? Use less energy per task. And that's true. There are efficiency breakthroughs. But the report warns that basic market trends suggest that this will simply boost demand for processing chips and pave the way for bigger, more complex large language models.
Ah, so any savings get eaten up by more usage.
Exactly.
Eh.
In turn, mitigating the marginal energy savings. So even if individual models become leaner, the sheer scale of AI growth and the constant push for bigger, more powerful models could completely cancel out those efficiency gains. We might end up using more energy and resources overall. This means we can't just rely on tech fixes alone. We need active policy steps to manage AI's ecological consequences. Otherwise, the environmental bill for this revolution might just keep growing exponentially.
Okay, this feels like a theme that keeps coming up throughout the report. AI isn't neutral. It's definitely not some perfectly objective, bias-free intelligence floating in the cloud. For someone just trying to get their hair around this, where do these biases actually come from? And maybe more importantly, how do they show up in AI systems in ways that really affect people's lives?
You're absolutely right. That's a critical thread.
Oh.
The report states it bluntly. AI is not neutral. It reproduces and amplifies social biases and inequalities.
Yeah.
That's a fundamental point to grasp if you want to understand AI's real-world impact. It's like holding up a mirror to the society that created its data, warts and all.
So the data is the main culprit.
The training data is definitely a primary source, yeah. Most forms of AI, especially the big ones, are trained on large swaths of human-generated data. Think text from the internet, books, articles, images. If that data itself contains existing societal biases, say, historical hiring data that reflects past discrimination, or news articles that use stereotypes, the AI will learn those biases and often perpetuate them.
How does that manifest?
Well, the report talks about demographic biases, which happen when the training data overrepresent or underrepresent certain groups. This can lead the AI model to exhibit biased behavior towards those groups. For instance, facial recognition systems might be less accurate for people with darker skin tones if they were primarily trained on images of lighter-skinned individuals. Or imagine an AI used for screening job applications that learns from past biased hiring decisions and starts automatically downgrading resumes with female-sounding names for technical roles. This can create these awful, self-fulfilling feedback loops that just make existing inequalities even worse.
Right, the bias gets baked in.
Baked right in. And then there's cultural bias. Because so much training data comes from the open internet, it inevitably reflects the history of the digital divide. The report found something really interesting. Responses from large language models, like ChatGPT, tend to be closer culturally to those of humans in very high HDI Human Development Index countries, so wealthier, more connected nations, and most distant from those in low HDI countries.
So the AI thinks like the global north, essentially.
In a way, yes. Its worldview is skewed towards the cultures that generated the most data online, historically. This carries a real risk of cultural homogenization, where the AI might subtly promote certain values or perspectives as universal, while failing to recognize or understand local expressions, vocabulary, or cultural nuances from other parts of the world. It risks eroding the rich diversity of human cultures online.
That's a subtle but powerful effect.
It is, and AI can also contribute directly to stereotype perpetuation. The report notes how AI systems can exhibit stereotypical linguistic associations. One example cited was a study looking at AI-generated science videos on TikTok, which tended to associate women primarily with topics related to children and health, rather than core scientific research, reinforcing old stereotypes.
Media portrayals feed into this too. The report mentions that only about 8% of AI engineers shown in influential AI-related films are women, which reinforces the perception of AI as a male-dominated field and might even influence career choices for young girls watching.
So it picks up and repeats stereotypes. Exactly. And to give a really concrete example of gender bias in AI from the report's findings, it turns out men are more likely than women to use generative AI for work, and this holds true regardless of education level. Women are generally underrepresented among AI users, about 37% for women versus 41% for men in the data they looked at.
Why is that?
Well, the report suggests it's not about women having lower technological aptitude, interests, or skills. Instead, it points towards discriminatory social norms that are deeply embedded in how technology is often developed, marketed, and used. Things like women being largely excluded or made less visible in open source software communities, or receiving little recognition for their programming work, even when their aptitude is comparable. These social factors create barriers.
Okay, this leads us unfortunately to a particularly disturbing aspect. The report discusses how technology, including AI, is being weaponized to actually perpetrate gender-based violence. Can you elaborate on what the report says about this? It highlights a very dark side of digital integration.
Yes, this is a truly grievous consequence, and the report addresses it directly. It defines technology-facilitated gender-based violence, TFGBV, as basically any act that is committed, assisted, aggravated, or amplified by the use of information communication technologies or other digital tools, so phones, internet, AI, which results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological, social, political, or economic harm or other infringements of rights and freedoms. What's particularly insidious here is that women and girls are often targeted simply for being online and for being women or girls. The attacks are frequently deeply personal, sexualized, and designed to silence or harm them.
How common is this?
The prevalence figures are alarming. Globally, the report states 38% of women have experienced gender-based violence online, and a staggering 85% of women have witnessed it happening to others. Young women seem to be disproportionately affected, with 58% of young women across 31 countries reporting experiences of online gender-based violence.
That's horrifyingly high. What forms does it take?
It takes many forms. Things like image-based abuse, often called revenge porn, which involves sharing intimate images without consent. Relentless online trolling and hate speech, often coordinated and deeply misogynistic. Cyber harassment, cyber stalking, and the spread of gendered misinformation or disinformation designed specifically to damage women's reputations, undermine their credibility, or incite hatred against them, particularly women in public life like politicians or journalists. It's a direct assault on women's well-being, their safety, and their agency, and a very real, dangerous consequence of unmanaged digital spaces.
Okay, so given these pervasive biases we've discussed and these truly alarming forms of misuse like TFGBV, how do we actually push back? What are the strategies the report suggests for mitigating these biases and trying to ensure AI is genuinely fair and equitable for everyone, not just reproducing the problems we already have?
It's a huge challenge. And the report acknowledges that while there are technical solutions, the problem of bias isn't just a technical glitch to be fixed. It repeats that core message. AI is not neutral. It reproduces and amplifies social biases and inequalities. So addressing it really requires a broader, more societal perspective alongside the technical efforts.
So what are the technical fixes?
On the technical side, the report mentions things like augmenting data sets to debias imbalanced social group representations, basically actively adding more diverse data to try and balance things out, and also fine-tuning models with fairness objectives, which means tweaking the AI's learning process specifically to make it fair according to certain defined metrics.
But that's not enough on its own.
Not really, because defining fair is complex. The more fundamental approach involves human values alignment. Before these big language models are deployed, they go through a process, often using techniques like reinforcement learning with human feedback, RLHF. This involves humans rating the AI's responses, providing feedback on what's considered good or bad based on ethical guidelines like helpfulness, honesty, and harmlessness.
So humans are teaching the AI values.
In a sense, yes, they're guiding it. And the report gives an encouraging example. Some recent large language models, when prompted to generate stories about different jobs, now tend to feature female characters much more often, even for traditionally male-dominated fields. This shows that these alignment techniques can make progress in reducing the biases learned directly from the raw training data.
That's hopeful. But you said technical fixes aren't the whole story.
Right, because achieving true algorithmic fairness fundamentally would require defining what fair means in all sorts of different contexts. And that definition isn't something engineers can just decide in a lab. It requires broad, public deliberation on these norms and values.
Yeah.
We need processes that recognize and create space for diverse ideas and perspectives from different cultures, different communities, different lived experiences. What's considered fair in one situation or society might not be in another. So it'd have to be a continuous and collaborative effort, constantly revisited as norms evolve and we learn more.
A societal conversation, not just a technical one.
Exactly. And finally, the way we evaluate these AI systems needs to change. It must be multidimensional, continuous, and interdisciplinary. The report says no single metric can capture the multifaceted impacts that AI systems have on people. Many potential harms, like subtle biases or impacts on agency, are complex concepts that can't just be boiled down to a single accuracy score.
So we need better tests.
We need broader, more holistic tests. The report mentions the Holistic Evaluation of Language Models, HLM, benchmark as a good example. It uses a multimetric approach, looking at accuracy, yes, but also things like calibration, how well the AI knows what it doesn't know, robustness, how well it handles unexpected inputs, bias, fairness, toxicity, and even efficiency, all across many different scenarios. This kind of comprehensive approach helps make the inevitable trade-offs transparent, ensuring that crucial aspects beyond just task performance aren't neglected. This continuous multidisciplinary evaluation is absolutely vital for adapting to AI's evolving impacts and steering it towards benefiting all of humanity.
Okay, let's broaden the view again. The report talks about a geopolitical innovation race when it comes to AI. What exactly does that mean for how AI gets developed? And maybe more critically, who ultimately benefits from this race globally, especially considering all the disparities and biases we've just been talking about?
Yeah, this geopolitical innovation race idea highlights a really significant structural challenge. The whole supply chain for advanced AI, the stuff that powers the latest breakthroughs, relies heavily on three key inputs. And the problem is these inputs are highly concentrated, which creates unique, serious challenges, especially for countries lower down the Human Development Index, HDI. This concentration essentially means a handful of powerful players, big companies, certain nations largely control the direction AI takes.
Okay, what are those three inputs?
First, there's raw computing power, the massive computational resources needed to train and run these giant AI models. This is overwhelmingly dominated by big tech companies. They own far more cutting-edge computing power than most national governments combined. And as we discussed earlier, these AI data centers have those huge energy and water demands, which further concentrates this resource in places that have abundant power and cooling infrastructure, often meaning wealthier nations or areas where these corporations are based. This makes it incredibly difficult for smaller nations, universities, or independent researchers to compete at the frontier of AI development.
So access to the machines is limited. What's second?
Second is data, the fuel for AI. Companies that have access to vast amounts of proprietary data gathered from billions of user interactions on their platforms or specialized data sets they've curated have a massive advantage in training more capable models. This also creates what the report calls data deserts, where people in low-income countries or marginalized communities are simply underrepresented in the data sets used to train AI.
Like we discussed with cultural bias.
Exactly. It leads directly to that. If your culture, your language, your needs aren't well represented in the training data, the resulting AI model is less likely to understand you or serve you well. The report's finding that ChatGPT responses are closer culturally to those of humans in very high HDI countries is a direct result of this data imbalance. It risks that cultural homogenization, where the AI's perspective is heavily skewed towards those who already have the largest digital footprints, potentially sidelining or even misrepresenting everyone else.
Okay, compute power, data. What's the third input?
The third is talent, human expertise. The report points to a widening chasm in the global distribution of AI talent. High-income countries are seeing a net gain in AI talent, attracting top researchers, engineers, data scientists from around the world. Meanwhile, many low- and middle-income countries are experiencing a net loss, a brain drain, as their brightest minds often move abroad for better opportunities, funding, or access to resources. This means the expertise needed to develop, deploy, and critically evaluate cutting-edge AI isn't evenly distributed either, further concentrating power and innovation in just a few hubs.
So it's a cycle, the rich get richer in terms of AI capacity.
That's the danger. And the report emphasizes that focusing purely on a zero-sum competition, this AI race narrative, particularly among major players like the US, the EU, and China, who are all staking out positions on AI, Well, it risks missing crucial opportunities for cooperation and gains for all players. This race mentality could easily lead to a fragmented global landscape, where the benefits of AI are hoarded by a few instead of being shared to tackle urgent global challenges like climate change or pandemics. The real challenge, the report argues, is to steer this inevitable mix of competition and cooperation towards genuine human development, ensuring AI expands choices and opportunities for everyone, not just the privileged few.
Okay, so given those stark disparities, that concentration of power and the risk of a fragmented global AI landscape, how can we possibly ensure that AI development actually aligns with shared human values globally? What does the report suggest in terms of international coordination and governance? Is cooperation even feasible in this competitive environment?
The report argues that international cooperation isn't just feasible, it's essential. It's really the only viable path forward if we want AI to benefit all of humanity. A key initiative it highlights is the Global Digital Compact. This was agreed upon by the UN General Assembly in late 2024, and the report describes it as unique and exceedingly important. Why? Because it aims to shape the supply and governance of AI according to the universal principles of the United Nations Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It provides a potential foundational framework, a set of shared principles and values that could guide AI development and governance worldwide, moving beyond purely national or commercial interests.
So a potential global rulebook.
Or at least a shared set of principles to build upon, yes. And the report identifies specific areas for cooperation where working together could yield really high benefits. Things like creating shared systems for compute-provided oversight, maybe international bodies monitoring the largest AI models, developing standards for content provenance so we know where AI-generated content comes from, collaborating on model evaluations and benchmarks for safety and fairness, and setting up global protocols for incident monitoring and risk management so we can learn from failures and prevent them from happening again.
So practical shared infrastructure for safety and transparency.
Exactly. Things like international AI audits, for instance. These could be collaboratively developed and applied across borders to ensure that AI development adheres to social, cultural, and ethical norms and broadly to the principles of human development, end quote, respecting diverse contexts while upholding universal rights. And interestingly, the report also flips the script slightly, suggesting that AI itself can even help facilitate collective action and better governance. It mentions tools like Polis, which uses machine learning to synthesize input from huge numbers of people, helping policymakers understand public opinion, identify areas of consensus and disagreement, and guide collective decision-making more effectively. It does this not by forcing everyone into agreement, but by mapping out the landscape of opinions, even helping to mitigate toxic online arguments because it focuses on expressing novel ideas rather than just endless back-and-forth debates.
Huh. So AI could help us manage AI in a way.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
It shows AI not just as the subject of governance, but maybe as an enabler of more inclusive, more informed, and more effective governance processes itself.
Okay, so bringing this all together then, what are the really actionable steps? The policy levers that governments, societies, maybe even individuals can actually pull to try and ensure AI truly does expand human freedoms and capabilities, rather than concentrating power or making inequalities worse. What's the recipe for positive change?
The core idea, the central strategy articulated in the report, is to actively pursue a complementarity economy. What does that mean? It means deliberately strengthening the networks that facilitate productive interaction between people and AI, shifting the focus from just developing the tech for its own sake towards strategically shaping its deployment so it genuinely benefits humanity, working with our capabilities.
Okay, how do we do that?
The report outlines 3 key policy imperatives. You can think of them as the 3 I's: invest, inform, and include.
Invest, inform, include. Okay, let's break those down. What does invest mean here?
First, invest. This means governments and international bodies need to invest heavily in universal and meaningful connectivity as the absolute foundational enabler. AI relies on data, access, and infrastructure. Despite progress, the report notes there are still huge gaps globally in the quality, availability, affordability, and security of internet access, not to mention access to devices and the basic digital skills needed to use them. Closing this digital divide is step 1.
Makes sense. What else under invest?
It also means investing in public AI infrastructure. Things like shared computing resources that researchers or smaller companies can access, developing high-quality open-source AI models that aren't controlled by single corporations, and creating publicly curated data sets that are diverse and representative. The goal here is to democratize AI development and adoption, preventing the benefits from being monopolized by a few dominant players and fostering a more competitive, innovative, and inclusive ecosystem where many more people and organizations can build with and benefit from AI.
Okay, so invest is about access and infrastructure. What about inform?
Second, inform. This is about education and awareness. For example, governments need to roll out campaigns that inform parents, pediatricians, teachers, and other caregivers about the adverse effects of excessive screen time on children's development and mental health. This isn't about banning screens, but about empowering people with information so they can make informed choices about digital engagement and promote healthier habits for kids.
More than just tech literacy.
Much more. It's about understanding the nuanced impacts, and the report interestingly suggests this focus on screen time might even reignite conversations about affordable and flexible childcare. Why? Because sometimes screens become a default solution for parents who lack adequate childcare support. So informing about screen time risks might highlight broader societal needs. It's about fostering a deeper understanding of how digital engagement shapes well-being.
Interesting connection. Okay, and the final, ILI, include.
And third, crucially, include. This means actively ensuring that workers are included in both the games and the governance of AI in the workplace. How? Through things like robust social dialogue between employers, employees, and unions, and strengthening collective bargaining rights in the age of AI. This involves practical steps like establishing baseline workers' rights to data protection, ensuring their personal data collected by AI monitoring systems is used responsibly and transparently.
So protecting workers' data.
Yes, and also limiting the intensity of AI-based monitoring in the workplace, pushing back against excessive surveillance, and critically, upholding human-in-command principles for important employment decisions. This means final decisions about things like hiring, firing, promotions, or disciplinary actions should always require meaningful human oversight and judgment, not be solely determined by an algorithm.
Keep humans in the loop for big decisions.
Absolutely. Furthermore, include means ensuring that people with disabilities are not just passive recipients of assistive tech, but active participants in technology design and development. Their lived experience and expertise are invaluable in creating AI tools that are genuinely accessible and empowering. And finally, include also means bringing firms, businesses of all sizes into these policy dialogues. We need practical, balanced solutions that foster innovation while also safeguarding human well-being and societal values. So by really focusing on these three imperatives, invest in access and infrastructure, inform people about impacts and choices, and include diverse voices, especially workers and marginalized groups. In governance, the report argues we can strategically steer AI towards a future that genuinely maximizes human freedom and capabilities for everyone. Hashtag outro.
Wow. Okay, we have really taken a deep dive today into this 2025 Human Development Report, a matter of choice, people and possibilities in the age of AI. And I think what comes through so clearly, what's just abundantly clear, is that central theme. The future of AI. It isn't some predetermined path, is it? Not some script written towards utopia or dystopia. It is absolutely a matter of choice. It's this dynamic outcome being shaped right now by us, by human decisions, by the choices we are making today and how we design it, how we develop it, how we deploy it.
Yes, exactly. The report strongly emphasizes that AI's ultimate impact is defined not by what it can do, but by the decisions we make. Our choices, collective choices through policy, individual choices in how we use it, they genuinely matter in shaping how this technological revolution unfolds. We've seen today how AI can simultaneously amplify those existing damaging inequalities, but also offer these incredible leaps forward in human potential and development.
So we spent a lot of time discussing how perhaps the uniquely human capacity is this ability to frame problems, to decide what's relevant, what's important, what's actually worth solving in the first place. AI, as you said, excels at solving problems once they're defined for it, but it can't really define them for itself, not in the way we can, driven by values and purpose. This leaves us and you listening with a really provocative thought to maybe chew on. If that ability to frame problems, to decide what truly matters, is uniquely human, then what new problems should we be framing for AI to solve? Problems we haven't even maybe conceived of yet. And perhaps more importantly, how can we ensure that the problems we do choose to frame for AI truly serve the broadest possible human development, reaching everyone, everywhere, and ultimately enriching, not diminishing, what it means to be human in this new age? What stands out to you from this deep dive today that you'll be thinking about long after this conversation ends?